Oahu, the north and windward shores could see some of the most severe impacts. Casey Lund is live in Hauula with more on how people are preparing and the latest conditions there. Casey.
Hey, good afternoon, ladies. You know, we've been up here since about 4 o'clock this morning, and even on our drive up here, really wasn't a whole lot of wind. When we got here to Hauula, we did see the winds start to increase. Right now, they're still pretty mild. They've kind of come and gone. They were pretty sustained throughout most of the morning, but it's relatively calm right now. But what I've seen change over the last couple of hours is the surf way out there. It's really starting to get pretty noisy, pretty choppy. It was a lot more reserved earlier when we got here. Also, when we first got here this morning, there were about 5 fishermen lined up along Kamehameha Highway here. Those folks have cleared out. HPD came by and kind of told them it maybe is time to pack it in. I want to show you some other things. We've seen varying degrees of preparedness where you see homes like this one that nobody seemed to have touched. It doesn't look like anybody's home here. And then over here, Uncle Paul, we were with him earlier this morning as he started to board up the windows here at their home and put sandbags around those lower windows that go to the basement of the home. This is what people are doing. I took a drive up closer to town, Hauula, and saw people starting to take it more seriously. Earlier this morning, I didn't see any boards. I didn't see any sandbags as we came through Ka'ava all the way up to Hauula. We have not been up to Laie yet or Haleiwa. We know Mark Carpenter is going to take over for us here on the North Shore, and honestly, he's going to be dealing with probably some more serious conditions, as we know things are going to get a little bit more intense throughout the day. We've seen Laie Point, if we point over here, kind of come and go visibility-wise. We're not that far away from it, but we have seen things become so misty and so much moisture that you're not able to even make out the point there. Now you can see it. We've seen some sunshine up here as well. Another thing that we're really going to be paying attention to, of course, and we've been saying it throughout the morning, is this roadway here. We know, Mahealani, you covered earlier this year that big washout that put things down to 1 lane for a while. A lot of money spent trying to shore this up with those rocks, those bags of rocks, trying to reinforce that roadway. We're not seeing a whole lot of surf, though, hitting it too hard. What we are worried about along the windward shores is storm surge. You heard Mayor Caldwell talk a little bit about that GIS map that they have for the city and county of Honolulu that gives you a good idea of where we're going to see some of the most intense storm surge. What we're looking at right now is Kailua, Kaneohe. Places like those are going to be really dealing with more storm surge than a lot of other places on the island. I want to just touch on this really quickly before we send it back to you guys, though, and that shelter issue. We've had a couple of different people reach out to me and asking, why hasn't the city set up shelter on the North Shore? You heard Daryl Huff ask the mayor about it, and they say the best place to be is really not along the coastal areas here. Kahuku, they looked at the high school there. There's going to be flooding issues. BYU Elementary here in Laie, there's going to be flooding issues. They don't want to put people in shelters where they may have to evacuate them again. So while people do feel maybe the city hasn't considered them here on the North Shore, they've done that strategically. Waialua High School, they've also got shelters in Kaneohe, at Castle High School, and King Intermediate. That's where they want people to go. If you do feel that your home isn't safe, it's not a good place to be, and you need to head to shelter, you might want to start doing that, because yes, it is going to be a bit of a drive if you're out in Haleiwa, Laie Point, Kahuku, places like this where you really aren't comfortable. If you need shelter, it's time to start making your way into those. Of course, they want you to shelter at home if you can. Mahea, we're going to send it back to you guys in studio, though, for now.
All right, yeah, Casey, it is really good that the Department of Transportation finished those
out across Oahu. Casey Lund is in Hauula this morning. And Casey, we're looking at the weather behind you, but also just the streets. Are you seeing a lot of people as the sun comes out moving around, or is everybody hunkering in place?
You know, a little bit of a mix, Steve. We're seeing a lot of folks hunkering in their houses, coming out. I've seen a couple of people coming out and checking on some of the sandbags, some of the boards they have ready. And we'll talk about one of the gentlemen I spoke to in a little bit. But I want to give you just an idea of how things have changed since we got here around 4 a.m. at Hauula. Sustained winds, now they're starting to pick back up. Remember the last time we checked in about 45 minutes ago, it seemed like things were calming down. But it's definitely changing up here. I want to point out Laie Point down there across the water here. Just moments ago, it was completely invisible. All that cloud cover, all that moisture coming up off the sea really was completely concealing that part of the island. Now that's moved a little bit. We saw some rain with that as well. Another thing I want to point out is the surf. Now right here, it's not all that bad, but if you look out there, man, you get to see some pretty big swells. It's starting to pump a little bit, and you see this gentleman out here paddling out, one of the fishermen that we spoke about a little earlier off to our left, going out there. You know, he just heard from Shane Enright from Honolulu Emergency Services and Emergency Medical Services, and right now that might not be the best idea. They're asking folks to stay out of the water because the lifeguards, as you heard from her, are on sort of limited duty. One other thing that we're going to be keeping a close eye in here, and if you'll remember earlier in this year, before everything went crazy, one of the big stories that we were covering was the erosion here along Kam Highway, and you can see what DOT's done. They've put these bagged gravel rocks to kind of retain this portion of the highway, which has had problems for years with erosion as sea level rise contributes to that, and all these storm surges keep eating away, and at one point undercut about 12 feet of Kam Highway. They had to do a lot of work. They were down to one lane here earlier this year, and they've put a lot of effort into really rebuilding and restructuring this portion of the roadway. I want to show you one other thing. We checked in with one of the neighbors here along the roadway, and we heard from him a little bit earlier, and we kind of heard the same sort of tone from a lot of the people that we've talked about or talked to here. They're prepared, but they're also hoping for the best. They're really getting ready for the worst, but again, hoping that this passes. I want to let you hear from Paul about what he's doing to get his property ready.
We are hoping that we don't have to tack it up, but we're just in place right now, and hopefully we don't have to screw them in. We are prepared food-wise and everything, and hopefully it doesn't get any worse, but we're prepared.
Yeah, and again, that's what we've been hearing from most of the folks that we've talked to. They've been through their share of storms, and so they're sort of already ready with their food and their supplies. Like Allison was saying, on the island of Molokai, a lot of these people have stocked up and gotten ready to shelter in place because of the pandemic, so many of them are ready. But if you're waiting to put in a few last-minute items into your preparedness kit, your time is running out. Laie Foodland is closed now. They're not opening until Monday morning. The other one on the North Shore by Sharks Cove, that area, they are open as far as we know. I'm calling Foodland to confirm what stores they have open. I'm going to call Malama Market also near Haleiwa to see what their hours are today, if they're planning to reduce their hours. But man, really, it's time to start getting ready. We also saw a gentleman just down the road here on Kam Highway digging a trench, trying to clear one of those drains so that when we do see those heavy rains, if we do, it won't back up and create a lot of flooding along the road, which is really going to cause some problems as well, make some things very dangerous for folks out on the roads. But the message from all of our emergency officials is that today and this evening especially are a good time to just stay home and ride this thing out, and again, really hope that it passes us by without creating too much damage and causing too many problems. We'll send it back to you guys for now.
Yeah, and Casey, we feel for those residents out there. I mean, there's a lot of work that they've got as far as preparing. Just watching behind you and seeing what you've seen this morning, how much has the weather changed in those few short hours?
You know, honestly, listening, it's been interesting to listen to Chelsea and Ashley on Kauai and Allison on Molokai, and kind of similar. We've seen a little bit of everything. Just before we came on, the sun was out, and we were kind of, not getting excited, Steve, but we were ready to show you how dark things were over there, Laie Point. Now you can kind of see it again. So it's really going back and forth. But the one thing that has sustained is the winds. They're really not too bad right now. I don't want to guess the speed off the top of my head, but they're pretty mild, really. If you look at some of the palms, they're not blowing around violently or anything, but that's sort of the thing that we've seen. You can also see a patch of blue sky over there, but we know those conditions are going to change. But what I've seen, and if we can point out just a little bit further, the surf, the swell out there is really becoming a little more rowdy. That's what we're starting to see. So we hope it doesn't get much worse here, but we are expecting it to. And again, a lot of the folks living along Kam Highway here, really, really close to the water, they've been through this for decades. Paul, who you heard from, has lived off and on here for 30 years. He says they get ready, but they always have their boards ready to go, ready to put up against the windows, tack those up if needed. But they're just listening to their officials. They're listening to us, trying to provide the best information and keep people safe. We're going to be hanging out here because, again, like Guy is saying, this is really where we expect the worst of it to happen on Oahu. Steve?
and they have legitimate concerns as well. All right, thank you, Casey. 8:30 right now. The Maui County Mayor is urging residents to shelter in place today. Chelsea Davis is live on the Valley Aisle with a look at the conditions that are going on right now. Chelsea, how are things?